since she just had her other diaphragms released, we're going to assume that she had these other diaphragms released. So we can come right up here to the hyoid.
Well, something got released.
So remember, in the progression of the diaphragms, we just did the thoracic outlet. And the hand position for the thoracic outlet is I come in, find the most prominent posterior spine with my thumb. Can you roll towards me? Well, see, so my thumb is on the most prominent spine, and I just lay my hand below that like that. See, so here's the most prominent spine. So I just put my thumb there and lay my hand like that. So this is the hand position I was at just before, right? So now I'm going to move up to the hyoid. What I'm going to do with my back hand is pull it out a little bit, and I'm just going to use my fingertips on the posterior processes. And so go ahead and roll towards me. Okay? And my index finger is right up under this occipital protuberance. And then my other fingertips are just on the posterior processes on down the line. Okay? So, and very light touch. So the other one, remember, the posterior processes were here. For the hyoid, the posterior processes are here. Okay? And just very light touch. And I'm in touch with this side of my finger, I'm in touch with the occiput. For this side of my finger, I'm in touch with, usually you can't get C1, but you can get C2 there. Okay? So, and then with my little finger, I can go all the way down to C7. So you skip some of the vertebrae, but you're basically scanning the whole cervical spine. So then with my other hand, I come in here and I just find the hyoid. So the hyoid, if you can find the larynx, it's just above the larynx right there. And how you can tell is when you go to squeeze it, it's rigid. If you're not on the hyoid and you squeeze it, it's cartilage and it flexes a little bit and the person feels like they're getting choked. But if you squeeze the hyoid a little bit, they don't feel choked. Right? You don't feel that. But if I was above it and I squeeze, it flexes a little bit. So in her hyoid is right there. So now hyoid is a U-shaped bone. You've seen, I think there's a hyoid on that skeleton wired in there, right? And I think it's like the human equivalent of the wishbone, essentially. And so because it sits in there like this, it can be too far this way, it can be too far that way, it can be too far this way, too far this way, it can be rotated this way, it can be twisted this way, or that way. Okay? Did I miss any possible motions it could have? So for a long time, my hyoid was sitting there like this. Every time I check, I go, what's it doing over there? You know? So hers is pretty straight that way. And then again, I can put in little test motions or just tune in and ask it if I can help it in any way. And it just starts to unwind a little bit. So we'll save that for people who work on this. Can you feel it? Yeah. And it's pretty easy to feel her posterior muscle groups that go back to her neck. So I can feel it with my index finger, kind of a line like that, coming from the hyoid back to here. And the stylohyoid is pretty much straight up, and maybe a little bit back. But those are the muscles that hold it up so that it can suspend the trachea and the esophagus and the epiglottis and stuff. Okay. So, and then you just unwind it, and she really wants this. Okay, do it a little bit more. Okay. And actually, the hyoid itself is not moving a whole lot, but back here in her neck is moving a lot. But it's starting to get a little sweaty here, so she's giving off heat. There's a lot releasing here. So this is also, what chakra am I working here? Fifth, yeah. So this is an important part of the avenue of expression. There we go. See how she just took a sigh? right the split second before she took a sigh, the upper vertebrae in her neck just started to rip apart a tiny little bit. That's a sign of a release. So the back here in her neck relaxed just a little bit.
Dr. Wall, trying to say, like, if you're working with a client, could you, like, if you get a release, like, say in the morning, is it possible that you might need to do a release in the afternoon?
Yeah, they can come back. If they do, that's a clue you didn't get the primary lesion.
Okay.
Or their, like I said, their belief pattern, belief system has reasserted itself in their body. So if somebody calls you and says, well, it's all back again, if you can get them back in, that's good. If you can't, then just say, well, we'll just take care of it next time. But if you get them back in again, you can sort of see, okay, oh, that's why it established itself, and you can often go to another layer deeper. But these layers are pretty opaque. A lot of times you can't see a deeper layer until you get the top layer cleared off. It's not like, oh, I'm a terrible therapist, so I didn't feel that, you know. The body didn't show it to you. It wasn't ready. So that's why we often do multiple visits. So for the OA, I usually come in and just check the neck. Come through the neck. But right where her occiput stops and the neck muscles start, right there, I'll often just cradle the head, and then I put my fingertips right at that line where the bone turns to muscle. And that's usually also where the occiput is going from a vertical plate to a horizontal plate. There's a flex in the occiput there, and I put my fingertips there. Now the key to this move is you want your distal phalanx to be pointing towards their eyes. Okay, you want your fingers like this. You don't want your fingers like that. Okay, you don't want them back like this. See? So if I put them on her neck, I don't want them like this. I want them like this.
Curl.
Okay. So if we're back here, I'll see if we can turn to the side a little bit. Or if you look from the side, you can see where my distal phalanxes are pointing. Okay. So it's like this.
Almost back towards you.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. I could go like this with her. Okay, and put the pads of my fingers down. But so I'm going to do the tips of my fingers with one hand and the pads of my fingers with the other hand. You tell me which one you like the best.
Oh.
Yeah, this one's not even doing anything
No.
But if I curl them under, so sometimes you have to push your hand a little further under and then curl your fingers. Now, the nice thing about this hold, it's a trick you learn from rock climbing, is these muscles in your hands fatigue. The intrinsic muscles in between the carpals don't fatigue, believe it or not. So if you're like this, you're going to get tired. But if you're like this, you can hold it there for 20 minutes, you won't get tired. So you want to get most of the flex from your MP joints, because that's what the interosseous muscles in the hand move is the MP joints, right? The PIP and the DIP are moved by these muscles up here, and they get tired. So when you're rock climbing, you want to put your hand in a crack and go like that. You don't go like that, you go like that. And then you can hold yourself there for a while, as long as you don't tear the skin off the back of your hand. But so when I curl, I've had people in this position literally watching the clock 20 minutes sometimes. And so I get most of my flex from my interosseous muscles as much as I can. Now, how I was taught to do this is to push in until you lift their head up off your hands, like that. See, I haven't even lifted her head off yet, and that's a lot of pressure, isn't it? Some people like that, but we've also found it works just as well if you come in with more of a cranial pressure and intention and work with the muscle that way. Feel the difference? Yeah, so turn.
Have you tried this way too?
Yeah, so I'm basically just cupping the occiput of my hands, and my fingertips are on that ridge. You can see it here. We need somebody who's bald. Right there. So this one, the hand position is fairly particular. So I'll come around and make sure that your DIPs or your distal phalanxes are pointing kind of towards the back of the eye socket. That's what you're aiming for. Okay. And then however much pressure you put is just what the body asks for. Okay. So start really lightly and just keep adding pressure until it feels like the body goes, oh, okay, there we go. So seems like you like a little more pressure there. Are you a deep tissue person? Yeah. So a lot of it's what they're used to. But I used to do, everybody with this much pressure, and then some people it would hurt them or they'd get a headache, or especially if they have fibromyalgia and everything's amplified. And so what you're shooting for, a lot of times you can't do it on the first treatment because there's too much tension in these muscles. But if you get the muscles to relax all the way down, you can literally contact C1. And what you're contacting it with is this part of your middle finger. So I get my little fingers out of the way and I put my ring fingers right together. I can do it like this, okay? So, because these are too short, they don't get in the way. And so if you can get all the way in there and contact C1 with these fingers, then you can kind of rock C1 back and forth like that and put test motions in that way. You can also put test motions in by trying to gap C1 on the occiput. Does that make sense? Like that. And unwind it and that kind of thing. And just make sure if you do the rocking that you put it back in neutral before you stop doing it. But I think with this technique we can get a lot of the same advantages that people do with NUCA or Atlas orthogonal chiropractic. A lot of the same. If you can, and we don't need to X-ray people to do it. We're not exposing them to radiation to do it. That's just my opinion. I'm sure they might disagree with that. But we'll see what the person working on you gets. But there's a lot of tension in here, and I don't know that we're going to get all the way through in one day, like up in here. So you get in about half an inch or so. Feel that? Have you been carrying some tension in your neck that you know of?
Yeah, probably just from the massages. I don't know what else. Could be. I'm a neck person, so.
A night person?
A neck person.
Neck person, oh.
Could be.
Okay. So go ahead and, I guess when we triple up, I don't know if you could do these at the same time, because one would interfere with the other one.
Do 5 minutes on or something?
Yeah, just do a few minutes on each one, and the other person can be listening and assessing, seeing if they can feel any changes in the person as they're doing it, and then